Welcome back, everybody. In today's lesson, we're going to be drawing a pig. And I thought I would do the same 5 steps for this pig that I'm going to be using in my upcoming book. It doesn't come out until next year, but I'd like to show you the 5 steps that I've come up with in order to draw, well, the book is about animals, so any animal. So the first step, we're going to start with big shapes. And then we're going to move to smaller shapes. After we have the big shapes and the smaller shapes planned out, we're going to then start refining the drawing with some contour lines. These are outlines that give us the actual shape of the animal. From there, we're going to add some details. And finally, finish things off with shading. Now, depending on what animal you're drawing, these can be more or less difficult. The pig is, I would say, on the medium level to lower medium level. So one of the easier animals. You don't have to worry about feathers or any kind of patterning like on a leopard or cheetah or anything like that. So big shapes. When I say big shapes, what I mean are the shapes that we would call primals. And a primal would be a circle or an oval or a triangle, a square, a rectangle. These kind of simple shapes that everyone's familiar with. And when you take your reference image, it can be a photograph or a cartoon or real life. It can be any kind of reference image. We try to break them down in your head into these huge shapes. So enough talking, let's get to drawing. I'm going to start with a large oval. The pig will be facing this way. So if I imagine a large oval, notice 2 things. I'm going very lightly, first of all, because I can erase anything here at this stage. It's really at this stage we want to start putting in our final lines. But for big shapes and smaller shapes, go very lightly indeed. We're just trying to map things out. About that much. Now notice that the oval is slightly tilted upwards. So this side at the middle is a little bit lower than this side. That's because the hindquarters on a pig are larger than the forequarters. The back legs are larger than the front legs. So the pig is sloping downward, I suppose, to help the pig eat a little bit better. So we have this basic oval for the body, and let's add a head to this. For the primal, I'm going to choose a triangle and kind of put it somewhere around here, level with the body. Something like that. Now, again, if I made the triangle too big or too small, these things can be adjusted. And that's why we draw very lightly indeed for these first steps. I'm just kind of scribbling them in, and you can have different levels of comfort with this, and everyone's going to develop their own style. That's okay. I like to kind of be very scribbly in these early stages. Some people like to try for final lines right off the bat. That's completely up to you. And remember, you really should just try to have fun when you're drawing things like this. Okay, that's it for the big shapes. We have the triangle and the oval. Let's now move on to smaller shapes. And for smaller shapes, I'm thinking about things like the ear, the snout, maybe the legs, definitely the legs. And don't worry exactly how long it needs to be. What we're really more concerned about is where are they? Are they up here closer to the neck? Are they back here? What about here? That sort of thing. We're just looking for position at this point. Not so much anything else. So let's start here at the back, maybe something not exactly up and down, not exactly vertical, but a little bit tilted in. So something like this for now. And let's say, so this is basically a rectangle. I haven't finished it off, but it's basically a rectangle. front leg probably around here. And again, I can put a rectangle in here. Does it exactly matter which smaller shape? No, I could have drawn, let's say, a triangle like this. But we're just looking for position and trying to approximate things. Let's say the ground's about here. What about here? Ears, kind of triangle shaped or maybe leaf shaped. I don't know if leaf shape is exactly a primal, but it does tend to come up a lot. Something like this. The snout, I guess, would be in this area. You could put a half circle in for now. It doesn't really matter. I could put a triangle in or a half circle. I'm just trying to figure out where these small shapes are in relation to the other shapes. And then we have a little tail over here. So it's looking pretty bad at this point. You might, or I don't know, maybe not be able to tell it's a pig, but it's pretty rough and that's okay. We're gonna get this thing cleaned up in no time. Okay, that's pretty much it for the smaller shapes. We have the rectangles for legs, this kind of snout, some smaller shapes here and here. Let's move on now to contours. And the purpose of the contour lines are to connect the smaller and the bigger shapes together and the smaller shapes to each other. This is really where we start defining our animal. So let's start, maybe we'll start here. Okay, the bottom of the head here shouldn't exactly be a straight line. Maybe I could have, on the smaller shape section, brought in a kind of half circle, or not half circle, a bit of a circle, a bit of a curved line to the head, and then have it just curve up here. So two curving lines. It's like an S-shaped line coming down, up, and into this leg here. I'll just define this a little bit more. Okay, what else? Let's do this leg here. We have an arch shape. So I'm starting to draw the contours. It comes up and then back down. This is the front of one of the back legs. And then from here, we're going to carry the line up and come around. Going across the back, the back of the pig is kind of divided into a bunch of different shapes. This part of the back is called the rump, and it sits a little bit higher than this part of the back. So the rump just follow that nice curved line around. And after the rump, we get into this middle section of the back that is called the loin. You may recognize some of these terms if you eat this animal. The pork loin is here, and it kind of dips down. You can make it straight, but notably the rump should be slightly higher, and then it dips into the loin and into what's called the back. Just here. Right above this leg is the shoulder, which goes quite high to about here actually, but we're not going to draw that in. So the shoulder connects to the head with just a curved line. So it's pretty subtle. You have a curving out, and then it straightens out and then curves back out again. That's basically the back. the rump, into the loin, into the back, into the shoulder area, and then finally the neck. I can now that I have this line here, I can put in this ear that's kind of behind. I'll just make that a little bit pointier. Okay, let's work on the face part a little bit more. I'm going to use this line that I've created on the top of the head and imagine it carries through to about here. Bring the rest of the head down. And this circle that I've drawn is much too large, but that's okay because that's why we draw it very lightly. Just going to dip up slightly, down and back up. You can see it's almost like a candy cane shape. Comes up and then straight back down. This is the bottom of the nose or the snout, and this will go right into the mouth like this. My guy's going to be slightly happy, so it's upturned. Okay, underneath here, we have a little bit of work to do. Let's bring, instead of carrying this line around like this, let's make a little bit of a difference here, just to separate that mouth. We'll come up to the bottom of the cheek. I think something like that might be good. Okay, let's take this line and imagine it curves back the other way and then right into the leg. So this rectangle wasn't quite sufficient. Maybe I should have gone for a triangle. These things can change every time. They're just to give you a guide. Again, you can see how important this contour section is. This is really defining the outer boundary or the silhouette of the animal before we add the details or the shading. These are very time intensive, especially on, depending on the kind of animal. So you really do want to take your time with the contours, try to get this right. Okay, the front leg here. Now, oddly, pigs and a lot of quadrupedal animals have a shoulder and an elbow here and what's called a knee. And the thing that we're calling a knee is actually kind of the wrist. And the rest of the leg below that knee is analogous to some of the bones in the hand. And that's too much for now, but I sometimes get carried away with this. Okay, so triangular shape. Let's kind of just bring it down like this. There's a little bump here where that elbow is. It's part of the anatomy. Now the feet can be not too bad, I would say. I was going to say tricky, and then I changed my mind. And not too bad for the feet. We'll just go down. Imagine it has two shapes. There's a larger, thicker shape. It's kind of an extension of the leg. And then there's this strange little outcropping here that doesn't even touch the ground. And this is called a dew claw. It's like a thumb on the back of their foot, if you imagine, like this. So this doesn't even touch the ground, but it's called a dew claw. And then the hoof is just a line. Let's draw this other leg here. This one's going to be behind, so don't draw it at the same level. You're going to draw it slightly up. And that'll give the illusion that it's behind. And that dew claw. Okay, are we going to keep this line? Yes, yes we are. We'll carry that around to that front leg. This line here, it's actually the pectoral muscle, I think, is just under here. Pigs, when you look at the musculature of a pig, it's mostly back. You have this huge lat muscle here, and the obliques kind of swing around, but the pec's quite small. Okay, let's work on the stomach. It's a very smooth S shape. Kind of comes around. Maybe more straight would be better, and then dips under. So let's have that dip under, following that primal, that oval that we drew way back at the beginning of the lesson. Something like that. At this point, I think I might want to change this back leg and give it slightly more of a triangular shape. I'll just give it a little bit more of a width so it matches this one. And let's try to keep this and this foot on the same level here. So somewhere around here. And then the back legs we'll try to keep on the same level around there. Bring it in. There's that hoof. And then the dew claw. And this back leg will just kind of tuck in back here. Okay, and this area here this is called the side of the pig, and no surprise, this area is the flank. And there's always this kind of wrinkle that goes down like this. So we're getting pretty close. I think we should do the tail. For the tail, you can just do a quick up and down, and then imagine that it's curling this way. So it curls around that way, and then you might just see the end kind of poking out here. Different pigs have different kinds of tails. Sometimes you see this, maybe a tuft of hair. Something like this. Let's go for some... No, let's stop there. That's contours finished. Let's now move to details. There aren't a lot of details on the pig, but before we get into details, let's get rid of our extra lines. So I'll just grab a eraser here. I think at this stage, it's fine and appropriate to, if you wanted to go back and just strengthen some of your lines. That would be fair. And you can make these drawings as messy as you like, or as controlled as you like. That's going to come down to style and personality. Some people like more of a scribbly drawing. Some people really like to control every line and make sure everything is just perfect. Do you have a time limit? I think what's important is that you express yourself. Everything you do, your personality will shine through. So, but I think the tendency for people learning to draw is to try to control every line very tightly. So you'll see people drawing with their fingers very close to the tip of the pencil, like this, almost like a writing stance, like how they would write. And the more comfortable you get with making marks, you tend to drop back on your pencil like this, so that you can switch between using the tip of your pencil and using the side of your pencil. But let's move to details. And there really aren't a lot of details. There is a very, very small eye just here. The eye, I'm going to do a circle and color it almost in, except for a little spot I'll just leave white. And then around the eye, you can put another circle. There's not a lot of skin detail in a pig, but just some very light indications. Notice I'm using thin lines, not as thick as these outlines, as kind of indications of texture. For the snout, it's a backwards 6, so I'll come down and then color it in just at the bottom. Very, very thin 6. There's some more details for the snout and the mouth. Slightly downturned. I think that's made him angry. I'm gonna change that back. I like the happier version of the pig. I don't know, he might look a little bit menacing there. Not a lot of details here. We have these hoofs finished already. Let's make this pig a sow. So that's a female. And so we're going to add some teats so she can feed her children. I don't know exactly, I'm not as familiar with pig anatomy, how many rows of teats they have. But I think 4 seems fine. Maybe it's 5, 6. Don't put the teats all the way up. You're just going to have them maybe starting around here, just behind the back leg. Yeah, that's pretty much it for details. Let's get into shading. As a general rule, the things on the bottom are going to be darker because the parts on the top are being hit by the light. So this part will be darker. Also, since the pig is a rounded object, the bottom parts will be quite dark indeed. You'll notice that I'm using the side of my pencil to shade so I can get a broader line. And I'm shading very lightly and then going over it to darken it. By the way, I'm using an HB, which is kind of middle of the range. It's neither a hard pencil nor a soft pencil. It's just right in the middle. The harder pencils have an H and the softer pencils have a B. So let's color underneath the stomach. And as we move up, we'll get lighter and lighter. And in this area, you can imagine this back leg, kind of the muscle comes up this way. So I'll just indicate that. Some things you can draw lines for, and then other things you just you shade. And on the back here, the back is going to be rolling away and darker. I'm just going to color this in darker to indicate that there's a shift in the plane. If you don't shade something, the mind is going to make it read like it's in the same plane. But as soon as you darken something, you get that shift. So something like this that's round, typically you're going to very lightly shade on one side and then lightly on the other, like this. And it's going to give a rounded effect. So this back leg is going to be darker than the front leg, because the general rule is that the darker tones, darker values, push something back. So I will color this back leg darker, more darkly. Kind of losing this line, so I'll just reinforce it. I can put in a little bit of definition here. Okay, for this one, it's going to be the same trick. We're going to shade lightly on the side, lightly on this side, and then very lightly try to meet in the middle. And that gives us that rounded effect. This leg's going to be darker. Because it's further back. Of these two areas, which one is further back? Well, I'm going to say this one because this cheek is coming out this way. So that means this needs to be slightly darker than this. And that will push that area back and pull that area forward. Use this trick all the time in painting as well. The exception is if you're dealing with two different objects that are very far. So you see in landscapes, for example, that light objects, because of all the atmosphere between, if you're looking at a valley scene, for example, mountains become lighter and lighter and lighter the farther you go back. But in a single object, like a pig or a human or a cup or a banana, the rule is that the darker object goes back. Okay, let's see. Here at the elbow, a little bit darker. Underneath, so this part is farther back than this part, so I'm going to make it darker to express that. I'll round off the snout. Now you can think about blending in for all of this shading. If you have a professional art tool called a blending stump or a touillon, blending stick, some people call them. This is just rolled paper, and you can use that to blend. And you press down, make these little small circles. If you don't have one of these, then you can get away with using a Q-tip. It's also called a cotton swab. You can use your finger, but I would hesitate. I know I do it sometimes in my videos. I'd really hesitate to recommend that for the simple reason that your finger has a lot of oils in it. I mean, not yours particularly. All fingers have oils in them. And those oils can go into the paper and make your paper yellow over time. And yeah, not a good thing. I'm just going to very lightly shade across the back here. Show that that's being pushed away. There's a cheek area here. If you don't have one of these, it's not a problem. You can shade with just a pencil. But for very, very light shading, like you see here on this cheek area, you might want to go to a harder pencil, like a 4H or a 6H, something like that. But this drawing is just going to be done in one pencil. But that's pretty much it. That's our pig using this very simple 5 steps, big shapes, smaller shapes, contours or outlines, outlining the form, details. Really wasn't much to do in the pig for the details, and then shading. That's going to be it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.